April 1945. The island of Okinawa burns under naval bombardment as the United States launches the final stepping stone toward Japan. On the deck of a transport ship, Private First Class Desmond Doss stands apart from the others, while rifles are checked and bayonets sharpened. His hands grip only a Bible and a medical kit. He carries no weapon. He never will. The men around him whisper, laugh, and curse under their breath. Infantrymen trust steel and firepower. Doss brings neither. He is a Seventh-day Adventist, a conscientious objector who refuses to kill but insists on serving. Too many. That makes him worse than useless. It makes him dangerous. Training did not soften their judgment. They call him a coward. They beat him in his sleep. They accuse him of hiding behind faith to avoid combat. Officers threaten court-martial. Still, Doss refuses to touch a rifle. The army does not bend easily, but war is coming faster than bureaucracy can grind. Okinawa rises from the sea like a fortress. Japanese defenders have turned the island into a labyrinth of tunnels, artillery positions, and killing zones. The Maida Escarpment, soon to be called Hacksaw Ridge, is a sheer cliff crowned with fortified caves. Whoever controls it controls the battlefield. The landing is chaos. Shells tear through surf and sand. Men fall before they reach cover. Doss runs forward anyway, bullets snapping overhead, ignoring orders to take shelter. He drags the wounded back one by one, hands slick with blood, praying aloud while explosions shake the ground around him. The ridicule does not stop, but something changes. When a man is screaming for a medic, pride disappears. Doss does not ask who mocked him yesterday. He treats everyone the same. Morphine, bandages, calm words spoken through smoke. Days later, the order comes. The ridge must be taken. Cargo nets are dropped over the cliff face. Men climb upward into gunfire. Doss climbs with them, unarmed, exposed, knowing he will not shoot back. At the top, hell waits. Japanese machine guns rake the plateau. Mortar burst in white-hot flashes. The first assault collapses in minutes. Bodies pile against the escarpment's edge. Retreat is ordered. Men scramble back down the nets, wounded, panicked, broken. Doss reaches the edge last. He looks back across the ridge. Shapes move in the smoke. Voices cry out. Americans are still alive up there. He kneels and whispers a prayer that will trap him on the ridge alone. The ridge is supposed to be empty now. Command believes the survivors made it down. But Desmond Doss hears the truth in the dark moans carried on the wind. Broken voices trapped among shattered rock and twisted earth. Japanese artillery begins again. Each shell walks closer. Doss crawls forward, keeping low, calling out softly. A hand reaches back from the smoke. A man is alive, leg shattered, shock setting in. Doss works fast. No cover, no weapon. He binds the wound, injects morphine, and begins dragging the man toward the cliff. Every step risks a bullet. At the edge, there is no stretcher, no net, only rope. He knots it around the wounded soldier, lowers him hand over hand, whispering, "Please, Lord, help me get one more." Again, the prayer. Again, he turns back. Hour after hour, Doss moves across the ridge. Japanese patrols pass within yards. He freezes in shell holes, breath held, while boots crunch past. Once, a grenade lands nearby. He throws himself over a wounded man as it explodes, taking shrapnel in his leg. He does not stop. By nightfall, rain begins to fall, mixing with blood and mud. His hands cramp, his arms shake. He loses count of how many men he has lowered down the cliff. Down below, soldiers begin to realize something impossible is happening. Stretchers arrive from the sky, one by one, then another, and another. Someone asks, "Who's up there?" The answer comes back quietly, "That Bible guy." Above them, Doss hears a new sound. Japanese voices closer now. The enemy is searching the ridge. He drags one last wounded soldier toward the edge as rifle fire erupts behind him. The ridge is no longer silent. Rifle fire cuts across the ridge in short, violent bursts. Japanese soldiers move through the smoke in pairs, methodical, bayonets fixed. Desmond Doss presses himself into the mud beside a wounded corporal who can no longer speak. The man's chest rises unevenly. Every breath could be the last. Doss waits. Boots pass within feet of his position. He does not move. When the patrol disappears into the darkness, he crawls again, dragging the corporal inch by inch toward the cliff's edge. His injured leg burns with every movement, shrapnel still lodged deep. He ignores it. At the edge, his rope slips through raw, blistered hands. Below, voices shout warnings. Japanese flares rise suddenly, bathing the escarpment in harsh white light. For a moment, Doss is fully exposed, an unarmed figure standing alone against the sky. Machine gun fire erupts. He drops, shielding the corporal as rounds chew into the earth around them. Stone fragments tear into his uniform. When the firing pauses, he moves again, lowering the man over the edge just as another flare ignites overhead. Below, soldiers pull the corporal to safety. Someone starts counting the rescued. They stop when the number becomes unbelievable. Up top, Doss turns back once more. Dawn approaches. The ridge grows quieter not because the danger is gone, but because both sides are exhausted. Bodies lie where they fell. Weapons rest beside hands that will never move again. Doss finds another wounded man, this one unconscious, bleeding heavily from the abdomen. He works by touch. Light to dangerous now. Bandage, pressure, prayer. The rope goes down again as the first light creeps over Okinawa. Japanese snipers open fire from concealed positions. One round strikes Doss in the arm. He grunts, stumbles, but keeps moving. Blood runs down his sleeve. He has just reached another injured soldier when an explosion throws him forward. A grenade detonates near his feet. Pain tears through his body. He collapses, breath gone, vision swimming. For the first time all night, Desmond Doss cannot move. The ridge he refused to abandon now holds him prisoner. The sky lightens slowly, revealing the cost of the night. Smoke thins over the Maeda escarpment, and the ridge emerges as a field of torn earth and broken men. Desmond Doss lies where the grenade threw him, ears ringing, mouth filled with dust. His left leg is useless. His arm bleeds freely. Above him, Japanese fire slackens, then resumes in cautious bursts. They know Americans remain somewhere on the ridge. Doss drags himself into a shallow shell crater. Pain surges with every movement. He presses his helmet against his wound, ties it off with a torn bandage, and breathes until the world steadies. He does not call for help. He listens instead. A voice answers from the smoke. An American soldier, barely conscious, trapped behind a shattered rock face. Doss crawls toward the sound, bullets snapping close enough to feel the air move. He reaches the man and works with one hand, the other numb and useless. The soldier's leg is mangled beyond saving. Doss tightens a tourniquet until the bleeding slows. Down below, orders are being shouted. Another assault is coming. The ridge will be attacked again, with or without the wounded still lying above. Doss knows what that means. He begins to move the injured man toward the cliff, inch by inch. Each pull sends shock through his shattered leg. He bites down to keep from crying out. Japanese rifle fire resumes, deliberate now. One round strikes the dirt inches from his face. He reaches the edge. There is no rope nearby. He must crawl back to find one. He leaves the wounded man in the shallow cover of the escarpments, lip and turns back alone. Halfway across the ridge, a sniper round tears through his shoulder. He spins, collapses, then forces himself upright again. Blood loss is catching up to him. His vision narrows. He prays aloud, voice hoarse. He finds the rope. He drags it back. As he secures the wounded man for lowering, new movement appears on the ridge. American helmets, infantry climbing back up the nets. The second assault has begun. They reach Doss just as he finished the knot. Hands grab him, shouting to get down. He refuses. He points to the man at his feet. Lower him first. Only when the wounded is gone does Doss allow himself to be carried to the edge. Even then, he does not let go of the ridge easily. The battle is returning to Hacksaw Ridge, and this time, Desmond Doss is fighting to survive it. The second assault surges onto the ridge under covering fire. Riflemen spread out, grenades thrown into cave mouths, machine guns dragged forward through rubble. The Maeda escarpment becomes loud again, deafening, violent, alive. Desmond Doss is set down near the cliff edge, his body failing him at last. Medics move to treat him, shouting that he must be evacuated now. He shakes his head weakly. More men are still up here. He tries to stand. His leg collapses beneath him. Orders are shouted. The ridge must be held at all costs. Japanese resistance stiffens as American troops push deeper across the plateau. Mortar rounds fall in tight patterns, showering the ground with stone and shrapnel. A litter team lifts Doss despite his protests. As they move toward the nets, a Japanese artillery shell explodes nearby. The blast knocks everyone flat. When the smoke clears, one of the litter bearers is screaming, blood pouring from his leg. Doss rolls off the stretcher. He crawls to the wounded bearer, ignoring his own injuries. Hands work automatically, tourniquet, pressure, calm words. The litter is forgotten. The evacuation waits. More rounds fall. The ridge shakes. Japanese soldiers counterattack from hidden tunnels, firing at close range. American troops scramble to form a defensive line. Doss finishes the treatment and signals for help. Only then does he allow himself to be lifted again. They carry him a few yards when a sniper's bullet strikes him in the leg clean. Precise. He cries out and collapses once more. This time, he cannot crawl. Stretcher bearers return, lifting him carefully now. Blood loss has drained his strength. His hands tremble. The ridge blurs in his vision as he is carried toward the nets. Halfway there, Doss sees another man lying motionless ahead, an officer. Wounded and exposed, Doss raises himself on one elbow and points. "Take him first." The order is refused. Doss does not argue. He slides off the stretcher again, drags himself toward the officer, and begins treating him under fire. Only after the officer is evacuated does Doss finally allow himself to be lowered from Hacksaw Ridge. Hours after he should have been gone, the ridge falls quiet behind him, but the cost of staying is written in blood. The net sways as Desmond Doss is lowered down the face of the escarpment. His body is limp now, every movement sending fresh waves of pain through shattered bone and torn muscle. Above him, the sounds of battle do not fade. Rifle fire cracks overhead. Grenades detonate in the caves carved into the ridge. Below, hands pull him free. Medics cut away his uniform, revealing the full extent of his wounds. Shrapnel has torn deep into his leg. A bullet has punched clean through his arm. Blood loss has left him pale and barely conscious. As he is carried toward the aid station, the ridge erupts again. Japanese forces launch another counterattack, pouring fire down from hidden positions. American troops dig in, returning fire from foxholes scraped into rock and mud. Hacksaw Ridge is still contested. Doss is placed on a stretcher beside other wounded men. He tries to rise, to look back toward the escarpment, but strength abandons him. For the first time since landing on Okinawa, he is no longer moving toward the sound of gunfire. Hours later, as the fighting rages on above, he is evacuated inland. Field surgeons work quickly, operating under canvas as artillery rumbles in the distance. His leg is saved but only barely. Infection threatens. Pain is constant. Word spreads through the regiment of what happened on the ridge. Men who once mocked Doss now speak his name in disbelief. Numbers circulate, dozens saved, maybe more. No one is certain. What is certain is that men are alive who should not be. Back on the escarpment, American forces finally secure the plateau. Japanese resistance collapses under sustained pressure. The ridge, once a killing ground, becomes a defensive anchor. Days later, Doss is moved again, this time to a hospital ship. The war does not wait for him. Okinawa continues to bleed. The island will not be fully secured for weeks. In his hospital bed, Doss lies awake at night. He does not speak of heroism. He prays for the men still fighting, for those who did not come back, and for forgiveness that he could not save everyone. He does not know that his actions are already moving up the chain of command. He does not know that history has begun to take notice. The Battle of Okinawa grinds on. Rain turns the island into mud. Casualty lists grow longer with each passing day. Hacksaw Ridge holds, but only just. Japanese artillery continues to probe American lines, searching for weakness. Every yard of ground is paid for in blood. From his hospital bed, Desmond Doss listens to the distant thunder of the war he can no longer reach. His body heals slowly. Infection is beaten back, but the damage is permanent. Doctors tell him he will never walk the same way again. He accepts this without complaint. Officers from the 77th Infantry Division begin to arrive. They ask questions carefully at first, then with increasing urgency. How many men did he lower from the ridge? How long was he alone? Did he really refuse evacuation multiple times? Doss answers simply. He does not know the number. He only knows he kept going as long as someone was still calling for help. Back at the front, survivors talk among themselves. Men who once laughed now struggle to describe what they saw. A medic moving through fire without a weapon. A figure lowering the wounded into darkness, while enemy patrols passed within arm's reach. Accounts differ, but the core remains the same. Someone says, "He saved my life." Someone else says it again. And again. The reports move upward. Battalion, regiment, division. The language becomes formal. Extraordinary heroism, above and beyond the call of duty, recommendations are written, rewritten, and sent forward. Doss is uncomfortable when he learns of it. He does not want medals. He does not believe he earned anything more than the right to serve. He asks only about the men who were lost, the ones whose names are not being spoken. The ridge is quiet now, occupied by American positions. The caves are sealed. The ground is marked with wooden crosses and shallow graves. Okinawa will fall, but at a cost that shocks even veteran commanders. Weeks later, Doss is transported back to the United States. The war continues across the Pacific, but his part in it is finished. He leaves Okinawa behind on a stretcher, the island fading into mist. What he does not know is that the highest authority in the land has read his file and has made a decision. Washington receives the report in silence. Pages are read twice, then a third time. Numbers are checked against witness statements. Timelines are reconstructed. The language is careful, restrained, almost reluctant because what is being described strains belief. An unarmed combat medic, alone on a contested ridge, repeatedly refusing evacuation, lowering wounded men under fire for hours. The recommendation moves upward one final step. Desmond Doss arrives back in the United States thinner, walking with difficulty, his uniform hanging loosely from a frame shaped by months of combat and recovery. He avoids crowds. He avoids questions. He returns to training facilities and hospitals, places where war still feels close and personal. When the notice comes, it is brief. He is ordered to report for a formal ceremony. No explanation is given. On October 12, 1945, the war is over. The Pacific is quiet now, but its cost still hangs in the air. In Washington, D.C., soldiers line up in dress uniform. Cameras are present, but the mood is subdued. There is no cheering. President Harry S. Truman steps forward. He reads from the citation, his voice steady. Each line describes actions taken on Okinawa actions. Doss barely remembers as events, only as moments of urgency strung together by prayer and movement. The words Medal of Honor are spoken. Truman pauses before placing it around Doss's neck. He looks at the medic and speaks quietly, off script. "I'm proud of you." Doss nods. He does not smile. He does not raise his head. He accepts the medal as he accepted everything else, with humility, and without a sense of ownership. Later, when asked how it feels to be a hero, he answers simply that he isn't one. He says he was just trying to save lives. The ceremony ends. The attention fades. The war moves into history, but the ridge does not. In his dreams, Doss still hears the wind over Okinawa, still feels the rope cutting into his hands, still counts silently one more, just one more. Peace does not end the war for those who fought it. For Desmond Doss, Okinawa lingers in quiet moments, in the rhythm of walking, in the smell of rain, in the sudden memory of voices calling out from smoke. The Medal of Honor brings attention he never sought. Newspapers print his photograph. Headlines struggle to explain how a man who would not carry a rifle became one of the most decorated soldiers of the war. Doss avoids interviews when he can. When he speaks, he redirects the focus to the men who fought beside him. His injuries shape the rest of his life. The damage to his leg never fully heals. His lungs, weakened by disease and wartime conditions, limit his strength. Work becomes difficult. Ordinary tasks take effort. He accepts these limitations without bitterness. Veterans from Okinawa find him. Some write letters. Some visit in person. They shake his hand. They say thank you. Some say nothing at all, unable to put the memory into words. Doss listens. The ridge becomes a place of shared memory, a reference point for lives that continued, only because of a medic who stayed when retreat was ordered. He does not correct the stories when they grow larger than he remembers. He only insists on one thing, that it was faith, not fearlessness, that carried him through. Years pass. The world changes. The war becomes history, then distant history, but Hacksaw Ridge remains etched into military study, into official citations, into the memories of those who were there. When Doss speaks to young soldiers, he does not talk about medals. He talks about duty, about conscience, about choosing to stand firm when pressure pushes the other way. He never raises his voice. The ridge still ends his stories, because that is where everything that mattered happened. The train slows as it pulls into Fort Jackson, South Carolina, in the spring of 1943. Young men step onto the platform carrying duffel bags and nervous confidence. Among them walks a thin, soft-spoken private from Lynchburg, Virginia, Desmond Thomas Doss. He wears the same uniform as the others, but he carries something different. He will not touch a rifle. He will not train to kill. When the order comes to draw weapons, Doss remains still. The laughter begins almost immediately. In the barracks, jokes spread faster than rumors. A soldier who refuses to carry a gun, they say, has no place in an infantry unit bound for war. Officers call him impractical. Fellow recruits call him a coward. Doss says nothing. He only repeats his position calmly. He will serve, but he will not take a life. The army does not know what to do with him. Conscientious objectors exist, but infantry divisions do not want them. Doss is assigned as a combat medic, a role that still demands crawling into fire, still demands courage, but without a trigger to pull. Training grows harsher. Forced marches, live fire exercises, exhaustion drills. Doss falls behind, not from weakness, but from refusal. When ordered to practice bayonet strikes, he steps aside. When told to carry a rifle on patrol drills, he sets it down. The pressure builds. Formal charges are threatened. Court-martial is discussed. Yet the war does not pause for one man's conscience. Across the Pacific, American forces bleed their way island by island toward Japan. Okinawa waits ahead, a fortress of ridges, caves, and machine gun nests. Casualties there will be counted by the thousands. And somehow, against expectation, against ridicule, Desmond Doss remains in uniform as his unit boards a transport ship heading west. He stands on deck, sea wind cutting through his jacket, knowing the test ahead will not be about belief but survival. As the shoreline fades, the laughter behind him fades too, replaced by something heavier, the sound of distant guns waiting. The transport ship cuts through Pacific waters toward Okinawa, carrying men who have learned not to ask how many will return. Desmond Doss works quietly below deck, checking medical supplies, bandages folded tight, morphine syringes counted again and again. No rifle hangs from his shoulder. The absence is noticed every time the ship rolls. Conversations stop when he passes, yet when seasickness strikes and fear settles in, it is Doss who kneels beside the bunks, steady hands, calm voice. April 1st, 1945, Easter Sunday. American forces land on Okinawa under gray skies. At first, the beaches are strangely quiet. No heavy resistance. Too quiet. Doss moves with his unit inland, medic markings visible, helmet low. The terrain rises ahead into a jagged escarpment, the Maeda Plateau. Soldiers will soon call it Hacksaw Ridge. Japanese artillery begins to speak. Mortar rounds walk across open ground. Men fall. The laughter that once followed Doss is gone now, replaced by shouting, by screams for medics. He runs forward without hesitation, crawls when bullets cut low, treats wounds under fire, hands slick with blood. Ignoring explosions that shake the earth around him, he drags one man back, then another. Each trip is slower, each return more dangerous. Japanese positions are hidden in caves above the ridge, firing down with precision. The climb itself becomes a killing ground. Doss climbs anyway. Night falls. The ridge is taken, then violently contested. Counterattacks come in waves. Grenades roll into foxholes. Gunfire flashes in the dark. Doss works until his arms shake, until his voice is hoarse from calling for stretchers that cannot reach the wounded. When dawn approaches, the Americans still cling to the plateau but barely, and the worst is yet to come. The Japanese counterattack hits before sunrise. Bugles sound from the darkness. Infantry charges erupt from concealed caves. American lines buckle. Orders come down fast, withdraw from the ridge. One by one, soldiers retreat down the cargo nets, dragging wounded when they can. Desmond Doss hears the command and looks across the plateau. Men are still lying out there, dozens, some calling out, some silent. Doss stays, alone, no rifle, no cover. He moves from body to body, checking for life. When he finds one breathing, he drags him to the cliff edge. The drop is nearly 400 feet. He ties a rope, lowers the wounded slowly, praying each descent holds. Lord, help me get one more, he whispers, again and again. Japanese fire sweeps the plateau. Bullets strike the ground inches from his hands. Shrapnel tears through brush. Still he works. Hour after hour, he lowers men into the fog. Below, 30, 40, 50. His hands bleed from the rope. His legs tremble from exhaustion. At one point, a Japanese grenade lands close enough to throw him backward. He rises, continues. When the last wounded man is sent down, Doss collapses where he stands. Below, stunned soldiers count the survivors. They reach a number that does not make sense. 75 men rescued by one medic who never fired a shot. And above them, on Hacksaw Ridge, gunfire begins again. Gunfire cracks across Hacksaw Ridge again as American units prepare for another assault. The plateau is still contested. Smoke hangs low, mixing with dust and the smell of cordite. Desmond Doss is ordered to move with the line. He agrees, then pauses. It is Saturday. He asks for a moment to pray. Men who once mocked him now wait in silence. No one rushes him. When he rises, the attack begins. The climb up the cargo net is slower this time. Japanese machine guns rake the cliff face. Bodies hang tangled in the ropes. Doss reaches the top and moves immediately toward the wounded. A mortar round lands nearby, throwing him to the ground. Shrapnel tears into his legs. He crawls behind cover and treats himself, refusing evacuation. Hours later, a sniper's bullet strikes his arm, shattering bone. Another medic reaches him, tries to carry him down. Doss pulls free. Nearby, a more critically wounded soldier cries out. Doss orders the medic to help that man instead. He waits, bleeding, exposed. When help does not return, he begins to crawl alone toward the cliff edge. Every movement sends pain through his body. Artillery falls short. Japanese rifles fire from hidden caves. Doss inches forward until another blast throws him down again. Still he moves. At the edge, he signals for rope. Soldiers below pull him down, shocked that he is alive. Evacuated at last, Doss is carried past men he saved days earlier. They watch in silence as he disappears into the smoke. The battle for Okinawa grinds on for weeks. Casualties rise into the tens of thousands. Hacksaw Ridge is finally secured, but the cost is severe. Doss survives surgeries, infections, and months of recovery. He does not speak of what he did. He does not claim numbers. Official reports struggle to capture what happened on that escarpment. Months later, in Washington, paperwork moves slowly. Witness statements pile up. Officers who once questioned Doss now sign affidavits. On October 12, 1945, President Harry S. Truman places the Medal of Honor around his neck. Truman tells him quietly that he considers it a greater honor than being president. Cameras flash. Applause follows. Doss stands still, uncomfortable with the tension, thinking not of ceremony but of Okinawa. Yet the war has already taken its toll. Tuberculosis scars his lungs. Injuries never fully heal. The battlefield he survived will follow him for life. And as the crowd fades and the ceremony ends, the question lingers not how many men he saved, but how many moments like Hacksaw Ridge still wait, unseen, in the silence after war. The war ends, but for Desmond Doss, the fighting does not stop. He returns home thinner, lungs scarred, hands stiff from old wounds that never fully closed. Tuberculosis keeps him in hospitals for years. He learns to breathe slowly, carefully, as if still under fire. The quiet is unfamiliar. No artillery, no shouted orders, just long nights and memories that arrive uninvited. News clippings describe him as a hero. The Medal of Honor citation lists numbers, locations, dates. Hacksaw Ridge is reduced to ink and ceremony, but Doss remembers faces, not figures. He remembers voices calling out in the dark, the weight of bodies dragged across broken ground, the sound of rope burning through his palms. Those details never appear in official records. Back in Virginia, he avoids attention. He works when his health allows. He marries, builds a modest life, and speaks rarely about Okinawa unless asked directly. When he does, his words are precise, restrained. He refuses praise. He corrects exaggerations. He insists others did their duty too. The army moves on. Another war looms elsewhere. History files him away as a finished chapter. But Hacksaw Ridge does not stay buried. Veterans' reunions bring fragments back together. Men approach Doss quietly, sometimes years later, to shake his hand. Some tell him they should not be alive. Others say nothing at all, unable to find words. Doss listens. He never interrupts. The laughter from training camps is long gone now, replaced by something closer to reverence. In Japan, Okinawa rebuilds. The Maeda escarpment remains. Tourists walk the ground where bodies once lay. The rope nets are gone, but the cliff still drops sharply into the trees below. Local memory fades differently than American memory. War here is not medals or ceremonies. It is soil and bone. As decades pass, Doss's health weakens. The injuries from that ridge compound with age. He spends more time in hospitals than at home. Oxygen tubes replace field bandages. Yet when asked if he would change anything, carry a rifle, refuse the climb, stay behind, his answer never varies. He says he did what he believed was right when it mattered most. In 2006, near the end of his life, Doss returns once more in memory to Okinawa. The ridge remains contested not by armies now, but by interpretation. Some still struggle to understand how a man could enter the bloodiest battle of the Pacific without a weapon and emerge as its most unlikely symbol. The question lingers, unresolved, as his breathing slows, whether the world remembers Hacksaw Ridge for the killing, or for the moments when one man chose to keep lowering the rope. Time reshapes war faster than it heals it. As years pass, Desmond Doss becomes less a man and more a story. Articles simplify him, speeches polish him. The rough edges of Okinawa are smoothed into inspiration. Numbers are repeated, 75 saved until they sound unreal, almost symbolic. Doss listens from the margins as others describe his war. He does not correct them often, but when he does, it is always to remove drama, never to add it. Historians debate details. Some question counts. Others argue over tactical impact. Was Hacksaw Ridge already lost? Was the withdrawal inevitable? Did one medic truly alter the outcome of a battle that consumed thousands of lives? The questions circulate in classrooms and books, far from the escarpment itself. Doss avoids the arguments. He says the ridge was chaos. He says counting was impossible. He says men were alive when he found them, and alive when he sent them down. That is all he claims. As the Pacific War fades into archival footage, Okinawa remains complicated ground. For American veterans, it is survival. For Japanese civilians, it is devastation. Memorials rise that speak different languages of loss. Hacksaw Ridge is named, renamed, explained, and re-explained. Visitors stand at the cliff edge and imagine ropes where none remain. They search for meaning in the drop. Doss's health continues to fail. Hearing fades, vision weakens. The war grows louder inside his head as the world outside becomes quieter. In interviews late in life, he pauses longer between answers. Silence fills the gaps. When asked what frightened him most on the ridge, he does not mention bullets or grenades. He says it was the thought of missing someone, of walking past a wounded man who could still be saved. That fear follows him. Even decades later, he wakes believing someone is calling out. He reaches instinctively, hands closing on nothing. The battlefield is gone, but the responsibility remains. War ended in 1945. For Doss, duty never fully released its grip. As he nears the end of his life, the story hardens into legend. Films are proposed. Scripts are drafted. Audiences will soon see Hacksaw Ridge through cameras, not memory. The line between history and interpretation thins. And somewhere between the cliff and the crowd, the question persists whether the world will remember the man as he was, or only as it wants him to be. As the new century begins, the war finds Desmond Doss again, this time through retelling. Interviews arrive. Cameras replace notebooks. Questions repeat themselves, polished and predictable. He answers patiently, though each retelling pulls him back to the ridge. Words struggle to carry weight that once belonged to screams, smoke, and falling earth. What audiences hear as courage, he remembers as obligation. Public interest grows. Hacksaw Ridge becomes shorthand, a place reduced to a single act, a single man. Doss worries about that simplification. He insists the ridge was never quiet, never clean. He reminds listeners that medics died there too, that many never reached the rope. These details make broadcasts uncomfortable. They are often trimmed away. At home, his body continues to fail. Infections return. Old wounds ache in weather changes. He moves slowly now, supported by routine and faith. Nights are hardest. Sleep comes in fragments. When it breaks, Okinawa fills the room, flares overhead. Voices below the cliff, the constant calculation of who can be saved next. Even memory has no ending. Visitors come seeking inspiration. Some leave uplifted. Others leave unsettled. Doss does not perform for them. He does not dramatize. When asked how he endured, he shrugs. He says training teaches you what to do with your hands. Belief tells you when to use them. It is not an answer most expect. Beyond the house, the world debates war again, new conflicts, new justifications, new casualties. Doss watches quietly. He does not offer policy. He offers caution. He says war always demands more than it promises. He says the cost is rarely visible to those who decide it. As his strength fades, arrangements are made without ceremony. No final speech, no prepared message. Doss expresses one concern repeatedly, that the men he carried not be forgotten beneath the weight of his own story. The ridge, he says, was crowded. In March 2006, his breathing becomes labored. Family gathers. Machines hum softly. There is no battlefield noise now, only the steady rhythm of oxygen and waiting. As he drifts in and out, the past presses close once more, not as glory, but as unfinished responsibility. And even here, far from Okinawa, the question remains open. How many moments of quiet courage pass unnoticed, because history only learns to look back after the rope is already gone? Desmond Doss dies quietly in March 2006. There are no bugles, no battlefield salutes, just the measured routines of a hospital room returning to stillness. News travels slowly at first, then accelerates. Obituaries struggle to balance fact with meaning. Headlines repeat the familiar phrase "unarmed medic, Hacksaw Ridge, 75 saved," as if repetition alone can explain it. Memorials follow. Flags fold. Medals rest in cases. Veterans gather, older now, fewer each year. Some remember Doss clearly. Others remember only the ridge and a voice calling out in the smoke. Memory fractures as it passes from those who were there to those who were not. Stories condense. Edges blur. Public retelling grows louder after his death. Books sell. Lectures fill halls. Eventually, cameras return to Okinawa. The ridge is reconstructed on sets. Explosions are choreographed. Audiences will feel fear in controlled doses, safe in their seats. Doss cannot correct what is added or what is left out. The responsibility shifts to historians, filmmakers, and viewers to decide where accuracy ends and interpretation begins. For the men who were lowered by rope, the memory remains unchanged. Some carry scars that still ache. Others carry silence. They know what it meant to hear one voice above the gunfire telling them to hold on. Their version of Hacksaw Ridge does not need amplification. It exists every time they wake up alive. On Okinawa, The ground continues its slow work of erasing. Rain softens trenches. Vegetation covers scars. The cliff remains, indifferent to its reputation. Tourists arrive with cameras. Guides recount the story in practiced tones. The place absorbs it all without comment. History often seeks endings, dates, conclusions, meaning neatly arranged. But war resists closure. It extends forward through memory, through retelling, through what each generation chooses to emphasize or ignore. With Doss gone, the story is no longer his to shape. It belongs to those who speak next. And as the ridge stands silent above the forest, the final question remains unresolved, not whether he was a hero, but whether remembering him changes how the next war is fought. History prefers certainty. It wants numbers to settle debates, medals to settle meaning, and endings to signal that something has been resolved. Hacksaw Ridge offers none of that. It remains a place where the ground still drops sharply, where the wind still moves through trees that once hid gunfire, and where no marker can fully explain what happened. When the firing stopped and one man stayed behind, Desmond Doss is remembered now through layers of official citations, interviews, photographs, reenactments. Each layer adds distance. What remains closest to truth is not the count of men saved, but the decision repeated over and over under fire, to move forward without a weapon, to kneel instead of run, to choose time-consuming mercy in a place that rewarded speed and violence. That choice is harder to dramatize than gunfire. It does not scale easily. The Pacific War ends in textbooks with surrender documents and victory dates. Okinawa ends differently. It ends with civilian graves, shattered units, and a ridge taken at terrible cost. Doss's actions did not change the outcome of the war. They did something smaller and more unsettling. They proved that the machinery of battle can still contain individual resistance, not against orders, but against inevitability. Visitors still stand at the escarpment. Some feel pride, some feel discomfort. The story resists being used cleanly. It does not argue against war, and it does not justify it. It simply documents what happened when belief collided with necessity and refused to yield. As the last veterans fade, the responsibility shifts again to archives, to storytellers, to audiences. Memory is not passive. What is emphasized becomes lesson. What is omitted becomes permission. Hacksaw Ridge asks no questions aloud, but it leaves one behind for anyone willing to listen. Whether courage is only measured by the enemy you stop or also by the life you refuse to abandon, the ridge remains. The rope is gone, the silence endures, and history moves forward, carrying with it the uncomfortable knowledge that even in the most violent moments of the 20th century, one unarmed man altered the space around him not by force, but by staying when everyone else was ordered to leave.